The morning sun cast a golden glow over Buckingham Palace as preparations for the annual Trooping the Colour ceremony reached their final stages. Inside the royal residence, 9-year-old Princess Charlotte stood before her bedroom mirror, carefully adjusting the collar of her pristine white dress. Her reflection showed a young girl who had grown remarkably poised over the years, yet still retained the spark of childhood wonder that made her so beloved by the public. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, entered Charlotte's room with a gentle smile, carrying a small jewelry box containing the delicate pearl earrings that would complete her daughter's outfit. As she approached, Catherine noticed something different about Charlotte today. There was an unusual thoughtfulness in her daughter's demeanor, a quiet determination that seemed to go beyond the typical pre-ceremony preparations. Charlotte turned to face her mother, her blue eyes bright with an idea that had been forming in her mind for weeks. She had been observing her mother closely during recent public appearances, noticing the subtle signs of fatigue that Catherine tried so hard to hide from the world. The young princess understood, perhaps better than many adults realized, the immense pressure that came with royal duties and the toll it could take on even the strongest individuals. The Wales family had always maintained a close bond, with William and Catherine working diligently to provide their children with as normal a childhood as possible while preparing them for their future roles. Charlotte, being the middle child between George and Louis, had developed a unique sensitivity to family dynamics. She often served as the peacemaker between her brothers and had shown remarkable emotional intelligence for someone so young. As Catherine helped fasten the pearl earrings, Charlotte reached into her small purse and pulled out a handwritten note. The paper was slightly crumpled from being carried around for days, and the handwriting showed the careful attention of a child who wanted every letter to be perfect. Catherine's eyes widened with curiosity as she accepted the note, unaware that this simple piece of paper would become one of the most touching moments of the entire ceremony. The note contained words that Charlotte had practiced writing numerous times, each draft becoming more heartfelt than the last. She had consulted her governess about spelling and grammar, wanting to ensure that her message would be clear and meaningful. The young princess had even asked her father for advice about expressing feelings in writing, though she had kept the specific purpose of her letter a secret. Charlotte's gesture stemmed from a conversation she had overheard between her parents several weeks earlier. Catherine had been discussing the challenges of balancing public duties with personal wellness, and Charlotte had noticed the concern in her father's voice as he offered support and encouragement. That night, Charlotte had made a decision that would culminate in this moment before Trooping the Colour. The family's morning routine proceeded as usual, with breakfast served in the private dining room overlooking the palace gardens. Prince George, now 11, discussed his upcoming school projects with enthusiasm, while 6-year-old Prince Louis entertained everyone with his animated storytelling about his latest adventures. William reviewed the day's schedule with his private secretary, ensuring that every detail had been coordinated perfectly. Throughout breakfast, Charlotte remained unusually quiet, occasionally glancing at her mother with a small smile that suggested she was harboring a delightful secret. Catherine noticed her daughter's behavior but attributed it to pre-ceremony nerves, something all the children experienced before major public events. She had no idea that Charlotte was mentally rehearsing the moment when she would present her surprise. As the family prepared to depart for Horse Guards Parade, Charlotte made sure her special note was safely tucked in her small ceremonial purse. She had chosen this particular accessory specifically because it would allow her to keep her gift close while maintaining the elegant appearance expected at such a formal event. The young princess had thought through every detail of her plan, demonstrating a level of consideration that would have impressed even the most experienced royal protocol officers. The journey to Horse Guards Parade took place in the traditional royal convoy, with the family waving to crowds of well-wishers who had gathered along the route. Charlotte sat between her brothers, occasionally touching her purse to ensure her precious cargo remained safe. She watched her mother's graceful acknowledgement of the crowds and felt a surge of pride mixed with the protective instincts that had inspired her gesture. Horse Guards Parade buzzed with activity as members of the royal family took their positions for the ceremony. The household division troops stood at attention in their magnificent uniforms, while the massed bands prepared to provide the stirring musical accompaniment that made Trooping the Colour such a spectacular event. Charlotte observed everything with the keen interest of someone who understood the historical significance of the occasion while planning for her own small but meaningful contribution to the day's events. As the ceremony commenced, Charlotte found herself standing next to Catherine on the saluting platform, surrounded by other members of the royal family. The young princess maintained perfect posture and appropriate ceremonial behavior, just as she had been taught. However, beneath her composed exterior, her heart raced with anticipation for the moment when she would reveal her surprise. She knew that timing would be crucial, and she had already identified the perfect opportunity to present her gift without disrupting the formal proceedings. The sound of military bands filled the air as the ceremony unfolded with clockwork precision. Charlotte watched the magnificent parade of soldiers, horses, and carriages, but her attention remained partly focused on her mother. She observed Catherine's professional demeanor and public composure, recognizing the strength required to maintain such grace under constant scrutiny. This recognition only strengthened Charlotte's resolve to proceed with her planned gesture of love and support. The pageantry of trooping the color continued to unfold with its traditional splendor, but Charlotte's focus had shifted to watching for the perfect moment to execute her surprise. She had studied previous ceremonies and understood the rhythm of events, knowing that there would be brief periods when formal protocol allowed for more relaxed family interaction. Her young mind had strategically planned for one of these interludes. As the king's birthday parade progressed through its various stages, Charlotte noticed her mother occasionally adjusting her posture and taking subtle deep breaths. These small signs, invisible to most observers, confirmed what Charlotte had suspected about the physical demands of standing for extended periods during formal ceremonies. The young princess felt a renewed sense of purpose about her planned gesture, understanding that even small acts of kindness could provide meaningful support during challenging moments. Prince William stood nearby, his attention divided between monitoring his children's behavior and fulfilling his own ceremonial duties. He had noticed Charlotte's unusual quietness but trusted in her ability to conduct herself appropriately during public events. The Wales children had all demonstrated remarkable maturity during royal engagements, and Charlotte in particular had shown an intuitive understanding of when to be playful and when to be serious. The military precision of the ceremony created a magnificent spectacle for the thousands of spectators gathered on the mall and watching from around the world. Charlotte appreciated the grandeur of the event while maintaining her focus on the personal mission she had set for herself. She understood that her role in the royal family came with both privileges and responsibilities, and she had begun to develop her own interpretation of how to use those opportunities to support the people she loved. During a particularly stirring musical performance by the massed bands, Charlotte carefully opened her small purse and touched the folded note inside. She had written and rewritten the message several times, wanting to express her feelings with the clarity and sincerity that such an important communication deserved. Her governess had been impressed by Charlotte's dedication to crafting the perfect words, though she remained unaware of the specific purpose behind the young princess's literary efforts. The note represented weeks of observation and contemplation on Charlotte's part. She had watched her mother navigate various challenges with grace and determination, from managing the demands of royal duties to maintaining family life while in the public eye. Charlotte had developed a deep appreciation for her mother's strength and wanted to find a way to acknowledge and support those efforts in a manner that felt authentic and meaningful. As the ceremony approached its midpoint, Charlotte began to position herself strategically for her planned surprise. She moved slightly closer to Catherine, timing her movements to coincide with natural shifts in the family's positioning during different phases of the parade. Her brothers remained focused on the military display before them, unaware of their sister's secret preparations. The young princess had learned much about timing and discretion by observing her parents during public events. She understood the importance of maintaining dignity and protocol while finding opportunities for genuine human connection. This balance between public duty and personal expression had become one of the most valuable lessons of her royal education, and she was preparing to demonstrate her mastery of this delicate skill. Catherine continued to fulfill her ceremonial role with the poise and elegance that had made her such a respected member of the royal family. She acknowledged the crowds with graceful waves and maintained perfect posture despite the physical demands of the lengthy ceremony. Her children's presence beside her provided comfort and motivation, reminding her of the personal joy that accompanied her public responsibilities. Charlotte watched her mother's interactions with other members of the royal family, noting the subtle communications and supportive gestures that helped everyone navigate the complex choreography of major state occasions. These observations had contributed to her understanding of how small acts of kindness could have significant impact, even within the context of formal ceremonies. The sound of military drums echoed across Horse Guards Parade as different regiments took their turns in the ceremonial display. Charlotte found the music stirring and appropriate for the magnitude of her planned gesture. She had begun to think of her surprise as her own small contribution to the day's celebration of service, duty, and family bonds. Prince Louis, standing on the other side of Catherine, occasionally whispered questions about the various military units and their traditions. His natural curiosity and enthusiasm brought smiles to those around him, creating moments of warmth within the formal atmosphere. Charlotte appreciated her younger brother's ability to find joy in every situation, and his presence reminded her that her own gesture should be delivered with similar positivity and love. As photographers captured thousands of images of the royal family during the ceremony, Charlotte remained mindful of the public nature of the event. She had planned her surprise to be appropriate for the setting while still conveying the depth of her feelings for her mother. This consideration for both private emotion and public responsibility demonstrated the sophisticated understanding that Charlotte had developed about her unique position in the world. The ceremony's progression brought the moment closer when Charlotte would reveal her surprise. She felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement, similar to the feeling she experienced before school performances or other special occasions. However, this gesture felt more significant because it represented her own initiative rather than a planned activity organized by adults. Catherine paused to exchange a few quiet words with King Charles, who stood nearby in his role as the ceremony's focal point. Charlotte observed this interaction and felt proud of her mother's confidence in communicating with other senior members of the royal family. These moments of family connection within the formal setting reinforced Charlotte's belief that personal relationships remained important even during the most official occasions. The young princess checked her posture and smoothed her dress, preparing for the moment when she would step slightly forward to present her note. She had rehearsed this movement in her mind numerous times, ensuring that she could execute it smoothly, without disrupting the ceremony's flow. Her careful planning reflected both her respect for royal protocol and her determination to make her gesture as meaningful as possible. The perfect moment arrived during a brief ceremonial pause as the military bands repositioned themselves for the next phase of the parade. Charlotte recognized this as the opportunity she had been waiting for, when the formal atmosphere relaxed slightly and family members could interact more naturally. With the grace that had become her signature, she stepped closer to Catherine and gently touched her mother's arm to gain her attention. Catherine turned toward her daughter with a warm smile, expecting perhaps a whispered question about the ceremony or a request for assistance with her dress. Instead, Charlotte reached into her purse and withdrew the carefully folded note, presenting it to her mother with both hands, in a gesture that conveyed the formality and respect she felt the moment deserved. The young princess's eyes sparkled with anticipation as she watched Catherine accept the unexpected gift. The note itself was written on pale pink stationery that Charlotte had selected specifically for this purpose. Her handwriting, though still showing the careful formation of letters typical of a 9-year-old, conveyed earnestness and love in every carefully crafted word. Catherine unfolded the paper with gentle curiosity, unaware that she was about to receive one of the most meaningful communications of her life. The message began with a simple but heartfelt declaration of love and admiration that immediately brought tears to Catherine's eyes. Charlotte had written about observing her mother's strength during difficult times and wanting to provide encouragement and support. The young princess had expressed her pride in having Catherine as her mother, and her gratitude for all the love and guidance she had received throughout her childhood. What made the note particularly touching was Charlotte's mature understanding of the challenges her mother faced in balancing public duties with family life. The young princess had written about recognizing the sacrifices Catherine made and wanting her to know that those efforts were seen and appreciated. Her words demonstrated an emotional intelligence that surprised even Catherine, who had watched her daughter grow and develop but had not fully realized the depth of her understanding. The note continued with Charlotte's observations about her mother's kindness toward others and her dedication to helping people through her royal work. The young princess had mentioned specific examples of Catherine's charitable efforts and public engagements that had made impressions on her young mind. These details showed that Charlotte had been paying careful attention to her mother's work and had developed her own appreciation for the importance of service to others. Catherine felt overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness and maturity evident in her daughter's words. She had to compose herself carefully to avoid displaying too much emotion during the public ceremony, but the impact of Charlotte's gesture was immediately apparent to those close enough to observe the exchange. The Princess of Wales blinked back tears while maintaining her dignified public demeanor, a skill that had been refined through years of experience in the public eye. Charlotte watched her mother's reaction with satisfaction, seeing that her message had achieved its intended effect of providing comfort and encouragement. The young princess had hoped to remind Catherine of the love and support that surrounded her, especially during moments when royal duties felt particularly demanding. The success of her gesture filled Charlotte with a sense of accomplishment and deeper connection to her mother. Prince William noticed the exchange between his wife and daughter, though he could not immediately discern the nature of their interaction. He observed Catherine's emotional response and Charlotte's pleased expression, recognizing that something meaningful had occurred between them. His protective instincts as both a husband and father made him curious about what had transpired, though he respected their moment of private communication within the public setting. The ceremony continued around them, but for Catherine and Charlotte, time seemed suspended as they shared this intimate moment of connection. The young princess had successfully created a space for personal expression within the formal constraints of a state occasion, demonstrating both creativity and sensitivity to appropriate timing. Her gesture would be remembered by Catherine long after the pageantry of Trooping the Color had ended. Other members of the royal family began to notice the tender exchange between mother and daughter, though they maintained appropriate focus on the ceremony proceedings. The warmth and obvious affection displayed by Charlotte toward Catherine reinforced the positive public perception of the Wales family as genuinely close and supportive of one another. These authentic moments of family connection had always been particularly meaningful to observers who followed the royal family. Charlotte carefully tucked the note back into her purse after Catherine had finished reading it, but not before her mother had whispered a heartfelt "thank you" and squeezed her hand in gratitude. The physical connection between them conveyed volumes about the depth of their relationship and the impact of Charlotte's thoughtful gesture. The young princess felt proud of her ability to provide comfort and support to someone she loved so deeply. The military bands resumed their performance with a stirring rendition of traditional ceremonial music, but Charlotte found herself thinking about the broader implications of her gesture. She had learned that even small acts of kindness could have significant meaning when they were delivered with sincerity and appropriate timing. This lesson would influence her approach to relationships and service throughout her life. Catherine discreetly dabbed at the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, ensuring that her makeup remained perfect for the photographs that would document this historic ceremony. However, the inner glow that resulted from Charlotte's surprise was something that no amount of professional grooming could have achieved. The Princess of Wales felt renewed energy and motivation, knowing that her efforts to balance family and duty were recognized and appreciated by her children. The young princess maintained perfect ceremonial behavior for the remainder of the event, but those who knew her well could detect a subtle change in her demeanor. Charlotte carried herself with increased confidence, having successfully executed a plan that required careful consideration, appropriate timing, and emotional courage. Her gesture had demonstrated that age was not necessarily a barrier to providing meaningful support to others. As the ceremony approached its conclusion, Charlotte reflected on the importance of expressing appreciation and love to the people who matter most. Her mother's reaction had confirmed that taking the time and effort to communicate feelings could create powerful moments of connection that strengthened family bonds. The young princess had gained valuable insight into the impact of thoughtful gestures delivered with sincerity and love. As Trooping the Color moved toward its grand finale, the atmosphere on Horse Guards Parade reached its peak of ceremonial magnificence. The massed bands performed with exceptional precision while the various military units maintained their perfect formations, creating a spectacle that embodied centuries of British tradition and pageantry. Charlotte stood taller beside her mother, feeling more connected to the ceremony's significance after sharing such a meaningful moment with Catherine. The young princess had discovered something profound about the power of human connection within formal settings. Her successful gesture had taught her that genuine emotion could coexist with protocol, and that personal relationships remained central even during the most public occasions. This understanding would shape her approach to royal duties throughout her life, helping her find ways to maintain authentic connections while fulfilling ceremonial obligations. Catherine found herself viewing the remainder of the ceremony through a renewed perspective, energized by her daughter's unexpected display of love and support. The Princess of Wales felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for Charlotte's gesture but also for the reminder that her efforts to balance family and public duty were meaningful to those who mattered most. The note had provided reassurance during a period when royal responsibilities felt particularly demanding. Prince George and Prince Louis remained focused on the military display, fascinated by the precision of the troops and the grandeur of the horses. Their genuine interest in the ceremony's traditional elements brought smiles to their parents, who appreciated their children's ability to find wonder in historic occasions. Charlotte's recent gesture had added another layer of family connection to an event that already held deep significance for the Wales household. The media representatives covering the ceremony captured thousands of photographs throughout the day, but none could fully document the emotional impact of Charlotte's surprise for her mother. The most meaningful moments often occurred between formal poses, when genuine feelings were expressed through subtle gestures and quiet words. These authentic interactions represented the human element that made royal ceremonies more than mere state functions. As the parade reached its climactic moments, Charlotte reflected on the planning and courage that had been required to execute her surprise successfully. She had learned valuable lessons about timing, discretion, and the importance of considering both personal feelings and public appropriateness when expressing emotions in formal settings. These skills would serve her well throughout her royal career and personal relationships. The young princess had also gained insight into her mother's character through observing Catherine's reaction to the unexpected gift. Charlotte had witnessed how genuine appreciation could transform someone's energy and outlook, even during challenging circumstances. This understanding of emotional dynamics would influence her future interactions with family members and public audiences alike. Catherine carefully folded the note and placed it securely in her purse, knowing that she would treasure this tangible reminder of her daughter's love and thoughtfulness. The Princess of Wales made a mental note to frame the letter and keep it in her private study, where she could revisit Charlotte's words during future moments when royal duties felt overwhelming, or when she needed encouragement to continue her service. The ceremony's conclusion approached with the traditional flypast by the Royal Air Force, an event that never failed to thrill spectators and participants alike. Charlotte prepared to wave enthusiastically at the aircraft, but her excitement was now enhanced by the satisfaction of having successfully shown her love and support for her mother. The young princess had added her own special contribution to this historic day. Prince William had gradually pieced together that something significant had occurred between Catherine and Charlotte, based on subtle changes in both their demeanors. As a protective husband and father, he felt curious about the nature of their exchange, but he also respected their private moment within the public setting. The obvious positive impact on Catherine suggested that Charlotte had done something thoughtful and supportive. The royal family prepared to acknowledge the crowds gathered on the Mall, who had waited patiently throughout the ceremony for this opportunity to see their favorite royals. Charlotte waved with renewed enthusiasm, feeling more connected to her role in representing the monarchy after successfully executing her gesture of family support. The young princess understood that authentic relationships provided the foundation for meaningful public service. As photographers captured the final formal images of the ceremony, Charlotte maintained perfect posture while keeping one hand near her purse, where her mother's grateful response was safely stored. The young princess had learned that creating meaningful moments required both emotional courage and practical planning, skills that would serve her well in future royal engagements and personal relationships. The conclusion of Trooping the Color marked the end of one of the most significant royal ceremonies of the year, but for Charlotte and Catherine, it represented the beginning of a deeper understanding between mother and daughter. The young princess had demonstrated emotional maturity and consideration that impressed everyone who learned about her gesture, while Catherine had received unexpected encouragement at precisely the moment when she needed it most. The family prepared to return to their various commitments and responsibilities, but the impact of Charlotte's surprise would continue to influence their relationship for years to come. The Princess of Wales felt renewed motivation for her royal duties, knowing that her efforts were appreciated and supported by her children. Charlotte had gained confidence in her ability to provide meaningful support to others through thoughtful gestures delivered with appropriate timing. As the crowds began to disperse and the military units returned to their barracks, Charlotte reflected on the success of her carefully planned surprise. She had learned that love and support could be expressed effectively even within formal constraints. and that taking the time to acknowledge others' efforts could create powerful moments of connection. These lessons would guide her approach to relationships and service throughout her life. The young princess had also discovered that age was not necessarily a barrier to providing meaningful support to others. Her gesture had demonstrated that sincerity and thoughtfulness could transcend generational differences and create authentic moments of understanding between family members. Charlotte felt proud of her ability to recognize her mother's needs and respond with appropriate care and consideration. The journey back to Buckingham Palace provided the Wales family with their first opportunity to discuss Charlotte's surprise in private. As their motorcade made its way through London streets lined with cheering crowds, Catherine finally had the chance to express her full gratitude for her daughter's thoughtful gesture. The Princess of Wales explained how Charlotte's note had provided exactly the encouragement she needed during a particularly challenging period of royal duties. Charlotte beamed with pride as she listened to her mother describe the impact of her surprise. The young princess had hoped to provide comfort and support, but she had not fully anticipated how meaningful her gesture would prove to be. Catherine's heartfelt response confirmed that taking the time to express appreciation and love could create powerful moments of connection that strengthened family bonds and provided genuine encouragement during difficult times. Prince William learned about Charlotte's surprise during the car ride and felt immense pride in his daughter's emotional intelligence and thoughtfulness. The Duke of Cambridge was impressed by Charlotte's ability to recognize her mother's needs and respond with such maturity and consideration. He praised Charlotte for her initiative and sensitivity, reinforcing the values of family support and service that he and Catherine had worked to instill in their children. George and Louis listened with interest as their sister's gesture was discussed, gaining their own insights about the importance of supporting family members during challenging times. The conversation provided valuable lessons about recognizing when others need encouragement and finding appropriate ways to express care and appreciation. Charlotte's example demonstrated that meaningful gestures could be planned and executed thoughtfully, regardless of age or formal constraints. Back at Buckingham Palace, the family gathered in their private quarters to debrief from the ceremony and reflect on the day's events. Charlotte carefully removed her note from her purse and presented it to Catherine again, this time in a more relaxed setting where her mother could read it without the constraints of public protocol. The Princess of Wales read the message aloud to the entire family, sharing Charlotte's beautiful words about love, admiration, and appreciation. The note revealed Charlotte's remarkable understanding of her mother's role and the challenges that accompanied royal duties. The young princess had written about recognizing the balance Catherine maintained between public service and family life, expressing gratitude for her mother's dedication to both responsibilities. Her words demonstrated emotional maturity that impressed William and provided insights into Charlotte's developing character and values. Catherine announced her intention to frame Charlotte's note and keep it in her private study as a permanent reminder of her daughter's love and support. The Princess of Wales explained that she would look at Charlotte's words whenever royal duties felt overwhelming or when she needed encouragement to continue her service to others. This practical application of Charlotte's gesture would extend its impact far beyond the single day of trooping the color. The family dinner that evening took on special significance as they continued to discuss the importance of supporting one another through both public and private challenges. Charlotte's gesture had provided a perfect example of how family members could offer meaningful encouragement while respecting formal constraints and protocol requirements. Her success in balancing personal expression with appropriate behavior had impressed everyone who learned about her surprise. Charlotte reflected on the lessons she had learned through planning and executing her gesture. The young princess had discovered that providing support to others required careful observation, thoughtful planning, and emotional courage. She had also learned that authentic expressions of love and appreciation could have profound impact, even when delivered in brief moments within formal settings. These insights would guide her approach to relationships throughout her life. The media coverage of Trooping the Color focused primarily on the ceremony's traditional elements and the royal family's participation in this historic event. However, those close to the family understood that Charlotte's private gesture had added a layer of personal meaning to the day that transcended public expectations. The young princess had demonstrated that genuine family connections could flourish even within the constraints of royal protocol. Catherine's renewed energy and motivation following Charlotte's surprise became apparent in her subsequent public engagements and royal duties. The Princess of Wales approached her responsibilities with increased enthusiasm, knowing that her efforts were recognized and appreciated by her children. Charlotte's gesture had provided tangible proof that balancing family and public service was both worthwhile and meaningful to those who mattered most. The young princess had also gained valuable experience in identifying opportunities to provide support within formal settings. Her successful surprise at Trooping the Color taught her that meaningful gestures could be delivered even during the most structured occasions, provided they were planned carefully and executed with appropriate timing. These skills would prove invaluable throughout her royal career. Charlotte's gesture became a treasured family memory that would be recalled and celebrated for years to come. The Princess of Wales frequently shared the story with close friends and family members, using it as an example of her daughter's thoughtfulness and emotional intelligence. The note itself became one of Catherine's most precious possessions, representing the deep bond between mother and daughter that transcended their public roles. As the months and years passed, Charlotte continued to demonstrate the emotional maturity and consideration that had made her Trooping the Color surprise so memorable. The young princess built upon the lessons learned from this experience, finding new ways to support family members and eventually extending her care and attention to the broader public she would serve throughout her life. Her gesture at Trooping the Color had marked an important milestone in her personal development and royal preparation. The story of Charlotte's surprise spread quietly among royal circles, where it was appreciated as an example of the strong family values and genuine affection that characterized the Wales household. The young princess had shown that royal training and formal protocol need not eliminate opportunities for authentic human connection and emotional expression. Her success in balancing these elements provided a model for future royal engagements and family interactions. Catherine treasured not only Charlotte's written words but also the memory of her daughter's courage in expressing love and support during such a public occasion. The Princess of Wales recognized that Charlotte had demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence and initiative in recognizing when encouragement was needed and finding an appropriate way to provide it. This gesture had strengthened their relationship and provided lasting inspiration for both mother and daughter. Charlotte's surprise at Trooping the Color ultimately represented more than a single moment of family connection. It demonstrated the enduring power of love, appreciation, and thoughtful gestures to create meaningful experiences that transcend formal constraints and provide genuine comfort during challenging times. The young princess had learned valuable lessons about service, family support, and authentic expression that would guide her throughout her royal career and personal relationships.